Today I'm really going to tell you about a story, and it's a story of God's faithfulness. So about 13 years ago, I walked into this building for the very first time with my wife, Gwen. We were just married less than a month before we showed up here for the first time. We had just moved to the area, and we were looking for a new church home. I was a graduate student at Widener University at the time. I was preparing for a career in healthcare administration. But 2 years later, I had my degree. I was working in my field. But during that time, I was here serving at the church, and kind of the church and just kept pulling me in. Something drew me in. So as I became more and more deeply involved with ministry here, I asked my friend Randy Voigt to go and grab dinner. Remember the story? I needed to talk to someone because something just kept really tugging at my heart. So we met for dinner, and before I said a word, he wrote something on a napkin, but he didn't show me what he wrote. I then went on to express this pull I had into full-time ministry. But I wasn't sure what to do. I had just prepared for a different kind of career. My wife married this guy, thought I was gonna be making boco bucks running a hospital. And now she's like, what are you talking about? You wanna be a pastor? Hold on a minute here. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. So after I shared all of this and was weighing all of these things, Randy flipped over the napkin and he showed me what he wrote on it. It said, "Feel a call to ministry." A few months later, I started into full-time ministry right here and have been here ever since. Yeah. So since that moment, as you can imagine, I've experienced a lot in this building. Early mornings and late nights, weddings and funerals, death and new life, tears and laughter, hurting and healing, faithful friends and strained relationships, beauty and ashes. Reach Church is not defined as a building, as no church should be. Church is a people, not constrained to a building or defined as a building. The church is a people. But these walls, they tell quite the unique story. And it's a story really of God's faithfulness through all of the trials, all of the triumphs, and everything in between is a story of God's faithfulness. So go ahead and turn your Bibles to Nehemiah chapter 2. This is part 7 of our series, Therefore, and the message for today is called Rebuilding the Ruins. Rebuilding the Ruins. Will Mancini wrote this in his book, Church Unique. He says, the Bible makes it clear that every time there is a story of faith, it is completely original. God's creative genius is endless. He never, fatigued and unable to maintain the rigors of creativity, resorts to mass-producing copies. I love that. God is a creative God. He loves unique things. It's every church's mandate to do a few things. It's every church's mandate to preach and proclaim the gospel, right? It's every church's mandate to love others and to love one another, to nurture spiritual growth and spiritual gifts, to worship, pray, to serve others, to go into the world, to baptize new believers. These are the things that a church does that make it the church, right? But although all churches are mandated to do these things, every church is also unique. For example, right, every church has a unique culture. We've got a unique culture here at Reach Church. I'm in the bathroom this morning, and that happy birthday song, happy birthday to you. Everyone's singing happy Sunday to you. Like, yeah, what in the world is happening here? But we have a unique culture, and I love it. We have a unique culture. And along with that, every church has a unique vision, a unique hope and dreams for the future. That's what a vision is. It's our unique hopes and dreams for a lasting and impactful future. As a church, don't you want to be a part of something that's lasting and impactful in the community? Of course we do. So we have a vision to reach all people with nothing but Jesus in our own unique way. I have a lot of hopes and dreams, a hope for these things, a vision, a unique vision for Reach Church, and I want to tell you about it. I think it's time to tell you about it. But as I was thinking about those things, listen, you're never going to be able to fully understand the vision of our, as a church, unique future without understanding our unique past. Every church has a unique vision, and every church also has a unique story. There's a story there, a story of a unique past that God has specifically written. So if you've been here at this church for more than 4 or 5 years, this message, I hope, will remind you of that unique story that we have. And if you're newer to this church, this message will give you a glimpse of it. But by the end of this message and our time together today, we're all together, the hope, all together, whether this is your first week or you've been here for many years, that we're all going to walk together into the unique future that God has for us as a church. So one fateful night in July 2020, my friend Bill Pargo called me to tell me that a friend of his in the fire department had just heard over the radio that Reach Church was on fire. At first I thought he was kidding. And then I thought that it was just like a little, spark fire somewhere in the kitchen or something like that. So I didn't know, so I got in my car, I drove over here, and as I pulled in, there were firefighters on top of the roof, on the steeple, cutting a hole in the steeple to let the smoke out and to pour water in to get the fire out. So as you can imagine, the fire, the smoke, the water damage ended up being extensive and impacted a large portion of our building, which I'll talk a bit about in a little bit. But the fire, looking back on it, the fire was really just the tip of the iceberg. See, when the fire happened, I was on staff at the church, but I didn't hold an official leadership role at the time. Still, I'd been around long enough to understand some of the underlying complexities in addition to the fire that started to cause problems in the months that followed. And there is a method to my madness, so just really, you have to understand now as we move into the future, you have to understand where we've come from. Our church used to own and operate several Christian schools, multiple Christian schools, including Red Lion Christian Academy. That was the biggest one. We also had another church campus and owned property in Fair Hill, Maryland. And of course, we owned this property, and it went a pretty big renovation in 2011, 2012. So we owned several assets. We had a lot of assets, but because of all of these ventures, so to say, the organization as a whole also had accumulated about $8 million in debt. That became a really significant issue in 2020. Not only did the fire happen, but for a variety of reasons, that's a story for another day, the campus we owned in Maryland became independent, so we lost several members and attenders. And like all churches, we were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. This was right in the middle of 2020. So to sum it all up at this point, we had crippling debt, declining membership, declining income, and we're dealing with the consequences, really, of a series of poor financial decisions in the years before. So about a year after the fire, our church went through this extensive financial review to come up with some solutions to fix these problems and move forward. Now, I had just been ordained as the associate pastor of this church at that time when the financial review presented some very difficult realities. Simply put, the church was financially insolvent, really, and we couldn't keep operating the way we had been. So there was going to have to be some significant major changes to take place in order for this ministry to continue. So after this review and the meetings that followed in December 2021, our then senior pastor resigned. Now, this church began in the late 80s, okay? And before me, there had only been 2 other pastors. And they were father and son. Pastor transitions are never easy. If you've been to church for a while, you know that when there's a pastoral transition, it usually isn't easy, but it's especially not easy when you become the pastor of a church after the only other 2 pastors in the history of the church were father and son, and just 9 years earlier, you were really just the church bass player on the worship team. That's the situation. That's what it was. And this whole thing, I mean, there was fire, there were changes, there was just a lot. And so several people during that time, they left. Some of them were our closest friends. And those who remained, here's what we were left with. A financially insolvent church, a burned out building, declining membership, and a complicated, very complicated organizational mess to untangle. We were left with ruins. Yes. There was nothing left here. If you were here, you know. There was ruins. It was so bad that in the months that followed that time, I showed up here every Sunday thinking and hoping that it wouldn't be the last one. Truly. But the last Sunday never came. The last Sunday never came. And there's no reason for it. I wish I could give you an explanation. There's no reason. This is wild. I don't know. We got a rogue light. There's no reason. I'll talk about that in a second. The only reason can be God's faithfulness. It's the only reason I can say it's God's faithfulness. And we're here because a remnant group of people saw past all of the ruins to a hope of rebuilding them. Let's look at Nehemiah now. This is an intro, just Nehemiah chapter 1. Let's jump into his story. Now it happened in the month of Chislev in the 20th year, as I was in Susa, the citadel, that Hanani, one of my brothers, came with certain men from Judah, and I asked them concerning the Jews who escaped, who had survived the exile, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said to me, the remnant there in the province who had survived the exile is in great trouble and shame. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates are destroyed by fire. So King Solomon, let's just catch up here. King Solomon constructed what is now called the first temple. And for Israel, it served as the central place of worship, right? It was the central place of worship. It symbolized God's presence was among them. It was the Ark of the Covenant was there, right? That was it. But years later, the nation of Israel and its people were taken into captivity by the Babylonian Empire. And the Babylonians, what they did was they scattered the Israelites all throughout their empire, right? Like Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those are those stories during that time. They were scattered all over the empire, and they destroyed the temple. But about 50 years later, the Persian Empire destroys Babylon, and the Persians actually allow the Israelites to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. And they did. That's what the book of Ezra is about. They come back, they rebuild the temple. But years later, those who returned to Jerusalem were in great trouble and shame. That's what Nehemiah, what we just read, because the wall of Jerusalem was broken down. There was nothing to protect them. The wall was broken down. And this greatly troubled Nehemiah. So he goes and he asks the king permission to return and rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. And the king actually grants him his request. So let's now look at Nehemiah chapter 2. It says, "So I went to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, and I and a few men with me, and I told no one what my God had put into my heart to do for Jerusalem. There was no animal with me but the one on which I rode. I went out by night by the valley gate to the dragon spring and to the dung gate." That's the worst gate. The dung gate. Sounds like my backyard with my 2 dogs now. It's like the dung gate. Anyway. "And I inspected the walls of Jerusalem that were broken down and its gates that had been destroyed by fire." So when Nehemiah gets to Jerusalem, it says he inspects the walls. And at that time, there was nothing but a pile of rubble. There's nothing there, right? The actual word, though, for inspected in Hebrew means looking expectantly with patience and hope. So when Nehemiah inspected those walls, he surely faced the reality of how badly they were broken. Verse 14, if you look at it, there was no animal with me on which I rode. If you keep reading, it says that he couldn't even get by on his animal. It was just scattered ruins everywhere. There was nothing left. But when he inspected those walls, he looked at them and inspected them with patience and an expectant hope that they would be rebuilt. He saw past the ruins to the hope of rebuilding them. Zechariah chapter 4 says this, "Then he said to me, 'This is the word of the Lord to Zerubbabel, not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel you shall become a plain, and he shall bring forward the top stone amid shouts of grace." Grace to it. This was the prophecy about rebuilding Jerusalem. So maybe this is why Nehemiah looked at those broken walls, the ruins of the rubble. And he looked at them not in despair, but with an expectant hope and a patience that they would be rebuilt. A financially insolvent church, a burned out building and declining membership, but an expectant hope that the ruins would be all rebuilt. Not by might, not by power, but by his Spirit. And sure enough, back to our story, the last Sunday never came. Now, there were some hard months, But I'll never forget Easter 2022. Easter 2022, about 4 months after the pastoral transition, over 300 people showed up for Easter. I mean, to put that in perspective, last Easter we had over 500 people show up for Easter. But at that time, I'll never forget it. That was the moment really where I remembered finally having this peace that, man, we're gonna make it. Not by might, not by power, but by his Spirit. Then a few months later, we were able to make some financial moves, including separating from Red Lion Christian Academy, that not only preserved the church from financial disaster, but it set us up for a very prosperous future. Because of these financial and organizational decisions, we currently have no debt. No debt. And Tom, Bill, especially these guys work tirelessly to make this happen. And we're just so thankful. I'm thankful for them. All the leadership team. I mean, we came together to make this happen and to be in the position where we are now. Again, there's no real explanation for it. Sure, we had a good plan, but for this plan to happen, we needed God's faithfulness. You ever see the Avengers when they're like, getting beat by Thanos and they look at Doctor Strange and they're like, what's the chances we're gonna win? How many, out of all these possibilities, there's like 1 billion different possibilities. In which one do we come out on top? And Doctor Strange looks at him and he says, 1. Remember this? That's what this was like. It was amazing. But right now, because of that, we have no debt, which gives us tremendous freedom to do a lot of different things, which I'll talk about next week. But if this story doesn't show you anything, it shows you that we can have an expectant hope that the ruins will be rebuilt. God is the rebuilder of ruins. That's when he does his best work. So don't be ashamed of the ruins in your own story. This church has a story. I'm not ashamed of it. And you shouldn't be ashamed of your story either. Whatever ruins were in your life, God can rebuild them because he's faithful to you. Even amidst all the mess and the ugliness, he is there working. And that's why we can always have an expectant hope that the ruins will be rebuilt. Then another message came to me from the Lord. This is from Zechariah, continuing that passage. Zerubbabel is the one who laid the foundation of the temple, and he will complete it. Then you will know that the Lord of heaven's armies has sent me. Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. We gather for worship in an old gym. It's old. We have one room for our nursery, one room for our kids. We're still sitting on old, ugly, red banquet chairs that are out of whatever padding they had left. They're gone. Y'all are sitting on the studs of whatever is underneath. I mean, this is disgusting. We don't have a lot of fancy lights except for that one that just kind of went rogue a few minutes ago. The sound level's too quiet in some areas and too loud in other areas. We have a big orange dumpster out front that greets everybody who comes in. Hello, welcome to Reach Church. Here's our dumpster. The windows in the sanctuary are still boarded up, half. I mean, half of them are new, half are still boarded up. Our parking lot has potholes, the curbs are falling apart, there's puddles all over the place, and of course our geese friends who leave poop all over the parking lot. But I hope you understand in hearing the story, we're still here. And that's a miracle. And not only are we just still here surviving, we have thrived and grown in these years that, again, there's no explanation for it. I mean, frankly, there's so many other churches that are so nicer than ours. I mean, here, kids, go into this room and figure it out. I mean, Stacy, Tiffany, Denise, all of these people through the years have figured out this nursery and kids stuff. Amazing. This little girl, I mean, George's daughter, on this video we did on social media, they're like, what's your favorite part of Reach? She's like, Sunday school and Miss Lane. I'm like, I don't understand, but that's great. I mean, I understand Miss Lane, but the room, I mean, it's like, it's not great. We have them all in one space, and we have for so many years, but man, these walls, don't you see? These walls, especially the ones that aren't finished yet, they tell a unique story. And it's a story of an expectant hope that the ruins are gonna be rebuilt. And it's a story of God's faithfulness through it all, that he gathers his people to show up in a space that, yeah, it isn't refined, it isn't perfect, but it doesn't matter because we're here because of the message of the gospel and of his grace. It's about God's faithfulness through it all. Then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in, how Jerusalem lies in ruins with its gates burned. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem that we may no longer suffer derision. And I told them of the hand of my God that had been upon me for good, and also of the words that the king had spoken to me. And they said, let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for the good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they jeered at us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you are doing? Are you rebelling against the king? When the fire happened, we made this decision to not put the building back together as it was, but to make some substantial changes that would benefit our ministry in the many years to come. Now that, though, has involved getting new architectural drawings, obtaining permits, lots of permits from the county. I won't say anything else publicly, but you can infer what I'm inferring. Getting inspections, bringing our building up to code, designing a whole new fire suppression system all through the building. I'm glad we made that decision. Even though it's taken a long time, I'm glad we made that decision, and we're all going to be very glad that we made that decision years ago. But this decision is one of the reasons why this whole thing has taken so long. By the way, if you're new to us, yeah, the fire, that whole other end of the building, that you're like, what goes on over there? Well, it's being rebuilt. We've been in that process for years. But more than that, I can point to this, that, and the other thing. Listen to me. It has taken so long to rebuild things simply because opposition is to be expected when you're rebuilding the ruins. It doesn't come easy. Let us rise up and build, they said. And what's the next happen? But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant and Geshem the Arab heard of it, they jeered at us and despised us and said, what is this thing that you are doing? So all throughout the process, if you read the story of Nehemiah, all throughout the process of them rebuilding the ruins and the walls, Nehemiah and the Israelites, they face incredible opposition and setbacks and struggles. And so have we. Let us rise up and build. We're all excited. But the new fire suppression system demanded a custom-built fire pump to be installed in the stage basement. And because that pump was in the stage basement, a new egress, that means a door with an actual access to outside, would have to be built for us to do it, completely designed and built. That's just one. One of the many complications that we've had in doing this whole project. And I could say a lot more about all that kind of stuff and what we've had to go through. And it has been a lot. And man, it has been a battle. I'm telling you, it's been a battle. But let me also say this. Nehemiah built the wall. He rebuilt the wall in 52 days. Incredible to rebuild the wall in 52 days. But if Nehemiah would have had to deal with his insurance company, Nehemiah would have taken 52 years to rebuild that thing. Cheater, Nehemiah, you didn't have to deal with the insurance companies. It's been a tough one. I mean, we have an insurance adjuster, we have an attorney, and we're doing everything we can to reach a final settlement with our insurance company. It's a tough one, and it's a lot of money, okay? It's a lot of money. Now, to be clear, they haven't denied payment. There's nothing like that. They haven't denied payment. They've paid millions of dollars so far. But it has been a painstakingly slow process. We have repeatedly had to go back and renegotiate the amount because we're going to get what we're owed. But we've had to go back and renegotiate the amount we're owed and fight for every penny. More on that all next week. But it's been tough. I got to be honest, it's been very hard. All of this opposition from here, there, otherwhere. I'm human. I doubt. It's tough. You know, you do. I mean, I'm sure you've thought it. What is taking them so long? I guess Pastor Tyler does really only work 40 minutes on Sundays. You know? But insurance negotiations, permits, codes, drawings, approvals, unforeseen delays, rebuilding the ruins has been a battle. And we have faced incredible opposition and setbacks and struggles. But that's how I know that it's all worth it. All of the opposition, all of the setbacks, it is so worth it. Ezekiel prophesied this. Thus says the Lord, on the day that I cleanse you from all your iniquities, I will cause the cities to be inhabited, and the waste places shall be rebuilt. And the land that was desolate shall be tilled, instead of being the desolation that was in the sight of all who pass by. And they will say, this land was desolate, and has become like the Garden of Eden, and the waste and desolate and ruined cities are now fortified and inhabited. Then the nations that are left all around you, Delaware, all around you shall know that I am the Lord. I have rebuilt the ruined places and replanted that which was desolate. I am the Lord. I have spoken, and I will do it. I will do it. I will do it. That's how I know it's all worth it. All the opposition, all the setbacks, the struggles, the disappointments, it's all worth it. Because rebuilding the ruins, it's always worth it. Always worth it. Then in Nehemiah 2:20, Nehemiah answers the opposition. Isn't that cool? He answers the opposition, and this is what he says. The God of heaven has appointed us for his purpose and will give us success Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build. But you have no portion, right, or memorial in Jerusalem. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build. This is a bold declaration from Nehemiah that those in Jerusalem, they will not sit idly by, but would arise and build because it's their calling, it's their responsibility, it's their mission, and it's their rebuilding project. So Reach Church, the God of heaven has appointed for us his purpose and will give us success. Therefore, we, his servants, will arise and build. There will be opposition that we will face. There will be distractions, delays, and voices trying to distract us from the mission that we have in hand. But they have no portion, right, or memorial here. We will arise and build. We will arise and build. I haven't talked about this a lot, right? You know, if you've been here for a while, I haven't talked about this a lot. But man, I just kept feeling like this is the time to bring everybody in. This is our church. This is our rebuilding project that we all need to be united around in prayer, in vision, in focus. And this is what we are going to do. We are going to arise and build and finish the work. We will arise and build. After Nehemiah 2 and Nehemiah 3, look at this. He writes, then Eliashib, the high priest, rose up with his brothers, the priests, and they built the sheep gate. They consecrated it and set its doors. They consecrated it as far as the Tower of the 100 and as far as the Tower of Hananel. And next to him, the man of Jericho built. And next to them, Zachar, the son of Imri, built. The sons of Hanassah built the fish gate. They laid its beams and set its doors, its bolts, and its bars. And next to them, Meremoth, the son of Uriah, son of Hakkoz, repaired. And next to them, Meshullam, the son of Berechiah, son of Meshezabel, repaired. And next to them, Sadok, the son of Baana, repaired. And it goes on, and I'm done reading it, okay? But here's the point. That's just 4 verses. The rest of chapter 3 goes on to give these details. And all of these details, they make a point. Some laid beams. Some set doors. Some repaired, some rebuilt, but they all work together by being faithful to their section of the wall. God has assigned each of us, a part in building his kingdom. He has gifted each of us a particular job and a calling which he prepared beforehand for us to walk in. What a beautiful thing that you have a part of the wall that God has prepared beforehand for you to rebuild it, repair it, whatever it is. He has called you to that specific thing to do. So next week, I'm going to give you some of the details of our rebuilding project and how we're going to arise and build and how we're going to bring this thing to completion and open it and watch what God is going to do. Oh, man. But we're never going to get there unless we're all faithful to our part of the wall. But as we close today, I want to pause and ask you all and myself a very important question. It's one that I've asked several times myself. Why? Why are we doing this? Insurance negotiations, millions of dollars in construction costs, permits, codes, drawings, approvals, unforeseen delay, a lot of stress and frustration and disappointments and struggles and setbacks. It's a lot. Why are we doing this? Because listen to me. These walls, they tell a unique story, a story of God's faithfulness through it all. And for us, think about this. For us, for Reach Church, this place, these walls will always be more than just a building. Always. It will stand to serve as a testimony and a real life embodiment of what our church is all about, what the hope of the gospel is all about. When people drive past this church, they're not just gonna see a brick and mortar building, they're gonna see a story of God's faithfulness through trials, triumphs, and everything else in between. And what a gift that is. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. You're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never failed me yet. Now that's the song. And those are the words that will forever echo through these ruined and rebuilt walls. Because what I just read to you, that's way more than a song to sing. It's our story. It's our story. And listen, it's your story too. It's your story too. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Don't you need to hear those words over and over again? And as that message of hope and of love and of grace, of nothing but Jesus, as those words echo through these walls for many more years to come, it will come to echo in the hearts of the many who come to this place, the many who will be reached with nothing but Jesus. And they come to a place that itself was broken and ruined, but somehow, some way, in God's faithfulness through it all, he rebuilt what was ruined. He is the restorer and the redeemer of our lives, of every part of it, even the ugliest parts of it. And that is the message that we have here at Reach Church. It doesn't matter how broken it is. It doesn't matter how ruined it is. It doesn't matter how messed up it is. God's faithfulness is bigger and more powerful than any of it. And his grace will always be enough to rebuild the ruins, even of the most desperate and darkest of circumstances. And church, that is why we will arise and rebuild.